be in the zone.
Welcome to the Hawks on the Wing deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at the Giants versus the Hawks on a very cold Friday night in Melbourne. I'm C. I'm here with the Doctor. A good win by the Hawks. Let's discuss. Doctor, your first thoughts.
Pretty pleased, really, overall. I mean, the fact that they won is certainly pretty pleasing, but I thought that, it wasn't bad, their game. I mean, again, they have these peaks and troughs, and I was worried in the third quarter that the Giants might come back, particularly when they did their reshuffle, which was quite smart. It really, took away some of our potency, but overall, I thought that was a reasonable win. I've got criticisms which we'll talk about going on.
So what do you mean by reshuffle? Because
the Giants took out their midfield and put in a completely different one, and I think that really gave our guys a little bit of a fright, and they didn't expect it. They really reshuffled the whole team because they had a couple of injuries as well, which wasn't good. So I think that really upset our position and coaching. They had anticipated it being a certain way, and then suddenly it wasn't. So that was quite clever, and that meant the Giants got back into it, really. But
yeah.
What did you think?
I mean, I thought it was an okay performance. This team very much confuses me, and I say it every single week, is that I just don't know where we really sit on the ladder. We are in third, but our percentage is not the percentage of a third team in a way. I think we're only at like 118% or something like that. It just feels like and no matter what team we come up against, we always win by about the same and do it in about the same. It's like you put us against the best and we'll win by 20 points, and you put us against the worst and we'll win by 20 points. It's just this team feels like this very frustrating way of playing. Or I get frustrated personally watching, where it feels like we have these bursts of absolute brilliance where we'll get a very sizable lead, and I'll be like, okay, just now next quarter, let's do the same. Let's put another 2 goals up on them. And that's what happened at half-time. And then in the third quarter, suddenly GWS can kick 6 goals to 2, and they come right back into the game. And you just go, what is going on is it a mentality thing? And you suggesting that it was a reshuffle, but I don't think it was a reshuffle. You can't say you take 2 good players out of a team and they get better. It doesn't. It just does feel something mental or something in the team for me.
I think you're right. And GWS, don't forget, this was a critical game for them. This determines whether they're going to be in the 8 or the 10 or whatever in the finals. So this was a really big game. Whereas with Hawthorn, it was important, and we needed to win because we didn't want to drop out of third position. But for the Giants, it was huge. But let's break it down a bit, because one of the things that really drove me nuts in the first part of the game was bombing it long into the forward line. And I can't stand that. When you look at Brisbane and the way they move the ball into the forward line, it's precise. There's a precision about it, whereas we're just bombing it long. And then I heard Mitchell say that this was a strategy of theirs to do that, because it was a really slippery night. It was dew all on the ground. It was very cold. And they thought that the centre-half back line of the GWS was quite potent, and they would kick it over them, and then the guys wouldn't mark because it was wet or dewy, slippery, and then they would just knock it to ground, and you'd have all the little guys run on it and kick goals. That was their strategy. But I was so angry during the game, saying, "Oh no, not again! Can't we just find players in the forward line and kick it to them, and then they kick a goal?"
I mean, I agree. Well, let's talk about the forward line just in general. I mean, I think you got Watson,
Who's great.
and I call him the golden goose with goal instead of golden. The golden goose is that he's going to create for you. Probably he does it. I mean, it's always 3 goals. Let's be honest. I think he's kicked 3 goals in the last 10 games. It feels like, or something like that. He'll give you 3 golden eggs a game as long as he plays. He'll create it out of nothing, basically. And so you can bank 3 goals a game. That's why he's so valuable. But outside of him, there isn't really. I mean, you get a few goals from everybody, but you wouldn't say we have a forward down there who's beating their opponent. I don't think I wouldn't. Even though Chol played okay, let's say, I think Chol was number 2. I wouldn't say he was, really on top of his direct opponent. And I think it's been like that for weeks. I haven't felt like a forward has really taken ownership of the forward line.
The tools.
Any of the tools really take, like, they contribute. I'm not going to say they don't contribute, but there's no Tracy. And that's what worries me a little bit, because when you come up against, say, like the best in the business teams, like if you don't have a forward that's really dominating, like a Buddy or a Roughhead of time who can get up there and kick, 6 goals or whatever they kicked, or Buddy used to kick 10 sometimes, you just wonder who's taking the lead position, because Watson is not a key forward. You need a strong key forward, and I feel like we just need one of those guys to really step up and become dominant. I'm hoping Mitch Lewis could do it, but for me, Mitch Lewis just doesn't quite do it, and I don't know why. Especially today when they were bombing it in, and you felt like there was an opportunity for Toole to be a big marking target and take big grabs, but they just didn't happen.
No, and I think you're right. There's no scare factor there. With Buddy and Roughhead, they were scary, and therefore they attracted a number of other defensive players onto them. But the other problem that I see is that when it's kicked into the Tools, it's in a pack. They've got to try and mark in a pack. They're not in one, just one defensive guy on them. It's invariably a pack. And then someone can just smash it out like they were doing, and no mark. And sometimes they were smashing it I'm talking GWS here, was smashing it out so far, it would go, back to the 50-metre line. So their idea of it coming into the small forwards close to goal was just not happening. I agree. I'm still not convinced. And then you had Deer come in, which I don't think made the impact that he can, or he did. I was a bit disappointed by him. What did you think of his?
Yeah, I mean, Deer, I'm not sure about. He just doesn't look. That first season of his was so good, but now he just feels like he's just not quite. I don't know. It's hard to say with Deer what's exactly happened to him. He just feels like he's not quite at the level. But let's not get too negative, because there were positives definitely out of the game. I mean, this is what's amazing about it. I mean, we win.
Yes.
And you just wonder how we win, but we win. So
I think it's the little guys too, the ones that we were hoping would get the ball. I mean, Moore didn't have a great game. I mean, he was good, but he didn't kick goals. Whereas coming out of the centre, Mackenzie did, and Dalton did. He kicked 2, and C-Mac and Guinea. So that group they're starting to do their work like we wanted. So at some stage when that whole team gels and the big guys are taking their marks or leading out, this is where we miss Gunston, to tell you the truth.
Well, I mean, that's right, because I was actually at the game, and I was sitting sort of behind the goals, and you just notice with the tools we got at the moment, Gunston, he's premeditated a lead when someone marks them on half forward, and they turn around and they see Gunston already in space, leading at them, and they just have to kick it to him, and he gets a shot on goal. But I noticed the other forwards, that leading pattern just doesn't happen. They all seem to want it dobbed on their head, but none of them are very good contested mark. No, I don't think we took any, maybe the whole night. So it's sort of like they want it kicked to them in a way that they're not that good at. kind of like. And when they do lead, they often, because they're great, like Mitch Lewis, great kick. Like he did that great kick from the boundary line. If he's on the lead and he gets it, it's good. But they just don't read the play like Gunston does. I mean, few do in the entire AFL. That's why he's a star. But yeah, you just noticed like there was just not that leading patterns was just sort of the forward line for me is a bit chaotic.
Yeah, but you get the thing about Chol is I thought he was good when he went in the centre, and also he's such a dynamic tackler. Like he really works hard at that side of his game, which is great, but it doesn't help get goals. Well, in a way, it could. You know, if he did a couple of tackles where they, dropped the ball effectively, and so that's helpful. But I agree with you on that. But let's move.
Chol was good though. Chol was good.
It was excellent.
Chol's tackling pressure is great. I thought Chol was definitely the second behind Watson, and I thought he competed all night and he puts pressure and he did all that thing. I think the pressure level of the forwards was actually fine. It was just maybe it was a question of the strategy. I don't know that, but anyway, yeah. Let's look at the midfield. I mean, the midfield it's amazing. The midfield's almost turned from our bad point to our easily best point with just the addition of Will Day and the improvement of Ward and McKenzie. I mean, and Newcombe, of course, every week. I mean, he's just becoming an out-and-out star of the competition. Probably the least heralded star of the competition. Yeah. People go on about Bonts and the bloody Petrarcas and all this, but Newcombe's right up there with them. He gets so many clearances every game, and he's just so dominant in that midfield, Newcombe. So, talk me through who stood out to you in that midfield.
To me, McKenzie had his best game by far, and it wasn't that run around. He was clear in what he wanted to do, and then did it. And then kicking the goal was terrific because he needs to do that. I mean, he missed one, didn't he? He had two opportunities. One was a goal. And then, of course, you can't go past Day. I mean, he's just outstanding player. I mean, we can see why we needed him and wanted him. And he just makes that midfield work together. You know, like and he's the way he gets the ball, and he was saying after the game on one of the channels that the coaches are trying to calm him down, is not to do those really amazing things that he tends to do. Like they focused on when he flew across the boot of Oliver and smothered it, and I mean, he really went for it. I mean, it's sort of physically damaging, actually. And he was saying that the coaches are not very pleased about him doing it. And he's got to kind of ease off a bit on that way, which, invariably last year and this year ended up as an injury. But I think it's working. They're working together as a group is what's changed significantly. And Ward didn't have his best game. He was effective, but McKenzie then, is the one who behind Newcombe and Day becomes the primary one. It's interesting.
Well, that's what you want in a midfield. You can't expect them all to get 30 possessions at once, or actually in an effective midfield, you don't want that because that's just them sharing the ball between each other mostly. If you're getting high possessions, I mean, just look at GWS. Not GWS. Look at Gold Coast last week where they get a lot of possessions, but it's not very effective. I mean, I feel like as you said, it has a really good mix in that midfield at the moment. It's like you have the right outside players and then you have the right inside players with Day and Newcombe getting it out to the McKenzies and stuff like that. Yeah. And so there's a synergy in that midfield at the moment, it feels like, and that's what allows you to dominate that line. I mean, I just thought, and Dalton. I mean, Dalton was more of a forward, wasn't he, than a midfielder?
I think he was doing a bit of mid. I don't think he was going in the centre, not that I could recall. Yeah. But he was playing that forward sort of pocket role and coming off the wing a bit and kicked his 2 goals. He was good.
He's great.
He's terrific. He's a future player for us too, I think. What did you think of Meek and Reeves?
I actually thought that they were okay.
Right.
I think they competed in the ruck. I didn't think they were beaten. I think it was a pretty even ruck battle, and I saw as I said, when you're at the game, it's harder to see what's going on, through the TV, lens. So you probably have a better view of that. How did they look in the
16 possessions again between them, so the possession is never high. It's always around that 15 to 16. But I thought that they were pretty dominant in the ruck. Reeves in particular in the centre, he was good. But and Meek tried hard around the ground, but again, he's not a Gawn. But I'm not critical of him, but I still think that the Hawks have to look at what the two ruckmen mean in the future. And I think that Mitchell, I don't think the coaches either are going to continue with it necessarily. I think they're doing it game by game, and making a decision on that basis. So when it comes to it, we don't know what's going to happen in the finals. They may go for running players, really, but
I wouldn't say we need more running players, either.
No, maybe not. The trouble is we've still got a winger that I think has got a bit of a hole in. Morrison plays his role, but he's not an D'Ambrosio on the other side, who's really terrific. He's been playing really well, both defensively and offensively. And I like the way he takes it on. Like, he's sometimes in a really difficult position. He's got players all around him, and he tends to go to the outside on the line and then, kick it in from there. He's not afraid of moving it on, which is what a winger should do. So I'm really impressed with his game now. I like him.
He's a good player. I think we need to find, though, in that midfield, even if I look at Mackenzie's disposal efficiency, it wasn't that high, and I think that, again, goes back to kicking into that forward line. Like, it's not all on the forwards. It's also about how the midfield is directing those kicks to the forwards, and if they're honouring the leads, and if they're finding kicking it to the right spot. And there's sometimes it felt like a lot of the kicks were really not to the advantage. The one that comes to mind, it's a knock on Mackenzie, but when he was coming in, I think in the third quarter, and he picked out literally the defender and kicked it straight to the defender rather than kicking it to his forward on the lead. It's like those things. It's an interesting team because we win. We're third on the ladder, but there is so much to improve.
Yeah, I know.
And so you just go, we have such an upside. If they could tighten up the forward entries, we kick 150 points every week because it feels like they're leaving so many goals out, off what do you call it, off the scoreboard or whatever you call it. Because just tightening the kicking up a little bit and just hitting the target, not kicking over his head or kicking into the wrong spot or like that.
The other player we should mention is Guinea. I think Guinea had his best game for a while. I know that his efficiency wasn't high, but he was good, and I didn't mind his roving idea. We've been a bit critical about that and say, stay in the forward line. But I thought last night he showed why that can be good, and he took that spectacular mark in the forward it was on the 50 metre. That was a really amazing mark. And then when he goes for a goal, he's a bloody accurate kicker. So I was really impressed with his game. And the other guys, we've mentioned C-Mac and Moore. Moore was not the best game because he didn't kick goals, but that was helpful. But what about the back line? How did you think about that, especially with Impey being out? That was a big hole, I thought.
Yeah, the back line, it was good. For me, it lowered its colours in the third quarter.
Yeah.
I was down that end that they were kicking to, and there was those kicks that they were allowing those kicks to a player 20 metres out directly in front. Those couldn't be allowed. They basically gave three goals. It's one thing to allow marks when they're on the boundary, 45 metres out, tight on the boundary, and they say you can go for that kick, but you're likely to miss it or something like that. But those ones are just easy. goals, so that's sort of just giving them 3 easy shots, and it's sort of like that for me, that third quarter the backline was pretty poor.
Well,
I thought.
we may not have noticed it live, but they on TV, what happened is that when I think they kicked 2 or 3 in a row, GWS kicked 2 or 3 in a row, and it was all because of the backline not being a bit chaotic and not doing their job. And Newcombe went down there and got them all together and gave them a bit of a talk.
I did see a group of form, and was it Newcombe was down there, was he?
Yeah, they commented on that and said he said to them, get it together, sort of play hard again, get that back. And it sort of did work because they had a run on, and then it sort of Hawthorn was able to stop that really. Fortunately, because I can't remember, was it 4 or 5 in a row? So it was looking a bit dire, and I think they got that out. But therefore there were problems there, and I think Impey was really missed, and
Weddle.
And well, that's.
There's an excuse for the back line.
Yeah, there is.
That's why they can't function as they should, because they just took out probably. Impey's probably one of the best players on the ground for us every week. So you've taken out that, and you've taken out Weddle, who's been in very good form himself.
Yeah.
So that does break the structure. You've got 2 new players in who don't necessarily know where their positioning is.
There's Perez.
They're good. They're
doing fine.
They're fine, but they're not settled in that back line. They don't necessarily know where they're supposed to be as well as an Impey would, who's been there for years.
And then you've got Amon, who's clearly got a knee problem.
Yeah.
He went down the ground off the ground again into the rooms and had that re-strapped his knee, and it shows because his kicking is just not to the level that's been. He's playing with it, but it's not to his best.
Yeah, I thought he was okay though.
Yeah, he does his job. I'm not overly critical, to tell you the truth. I just mean for the performance that he's capable of, particularly earlier the year and last year, where he was even kicking goals.
Yeah.
He just doesn't have that dynamic about him at the moment. But I'm not critical of him. I think he did as you say, he did his job.
What was pleasing about the Forward line, I thought they were quite good on the ground. The back line. They were quite good on the ground, I thought. Which is almost always my knock on them, is that when it goes to ground, they don't look very secure. But I thought actually they were quite good when it came to ground. They normally were able to tackle, or there was a good pressure on the ground in that.
Yeah.
So I think other than that third quarter, I thought that the back line was quite strong. So I wouldn't say it's in poor shape. And I think when they get Weddle and Impey, we definitely missed the run off the back line.
Definitely.
You could definitely see there was very little run off that back line, I thought. Other than the Bailey McDonald one where he ran down. It's a shame that his kick was a little less accurate than it could have been. But it ended up okay, actually, because it went out of bounds on the forward line. But that was a great run he did down the wing. So that's the strength of Bailey McDonald. That's why he's in the team almost. And it's good to see him using that strength. So, yes.
What other things about the game? It's really the pattern is there each game that we've had. That is that we're able to have these run-ons, short bursts, which put us into a winning position. Then it's let go, and then it's luckily, not luckily, they work hard and get it back again, and then win, as you said, we predicted it was going to be 20. I think you said 25 or something.
I said I'd be happy with 30.
Yeah.
And so I'm not that happy with 14 over GWS.
No, I don't think so either. But it's still important. The win is important, and given the circumstances of the guys out, I think that's about. I wasn't expecting a 60-point win.
But I look at it and I say we could have won this game by 60 points.
Yeah.
Well, we're again at half time. We're up by 40 points, and you go, all you got to do is kick 2 more goals than them every quarter, which shouldn't be too much. You're playing 13th on the ladder as third.
Yeah,
just win these 2 quarters, you win by 60 points.
Yeah,
and then that third quarter comes along, and they just it's the other team that suddenly got momentum. you know, and I've actually been talking. We've been talking about this week, but it feels like this team doesn't have an ability to just tick goals over.
Yeah.
It's like there will be a burst. We got a burst, and that's fine. I always look back at the great team of the mid 2010s, 13, 14, 15. It had that ability to just create goals through. It would do it through, pinpoint kicking through the lines, and then kick it to Roughhead or Buddy or Bruce or Gunston on the lead. They'd turn around, they'd kick a goal. And that would just be ticking over in the background throughout the game. And you'd get like 6 goals or whatever from that ticking scoreboard. This team, it's like if they don't have that run where they kick that burst of 3 goals or whatever, it feels like they don't have a methodical way of creating goals. So if they don't win it out of the midfield and they get a huge run and have a great attack, no goals seem to come. And it's like they need to find a way, I'm not sure what it is, of getting that ticking scoreboard so that those quarters become just like, we're just kicking 3 goals a quarter every quarter just through this methodical play. Yeah. That's what they're lacking, and I think it comes down to ball use into that forward 50.
Yeah.
They get it all the way there, and then there's no guy leading out. There's no methodical way of creating it. Like Buddy leads that way, Roughhead goes that way. Bruce goes this way, and then they hit the target on the chest, and he goes back and converts or whatever. So it feels like that tick 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 doesn't happen in this team. That's what really need to. I'd love to see that. That start to come into their play. That's the next level for me. They don't need to work on burst play as much as they need to work on just a steady, methodical approach. Look at the Brisbane game.
Well, that's right. I was going to say that. I mean,
Brisbane had that.
Depends on how you measure this team, and the measure at the moment is really in. If you're a top 3, you have to measure yourself against the top teams. I mean, Mitchell bangs on about that and says that's our purpose. We're trying to sort of win against top teams. And then when you look at Brisbane the other night, I mean, that was against Sydney. That was an outrageously good game that they played, and they looked terrifying. On every line. Wasn't just, in the centre. They've got a great centre line. They've got 3 or 4 players yet to come back who are their primary movers. So that's the measure that I often do when I'm watching it. I'm thinking, where are we related to Fremantle and Geelong and Sydney and Brisbane now? Where are we in relation to them? And that's what scares me a bit when I see this just get over the line in a way with GWS and lose to the Bulldogs and next week's going to be a test against Melbourne, because Melbourne have got their tails up and they're going pretty well, and they've got some scary players in that team. So I don't know.
It's lucky we were in Fort Tasmania for that game. That's why. Could have easily been at the MCG that game, and then it would have been much harder, especially if Watson might miss.
Yeah, well, he looked like he might have a hammy, but on the other hand, they were fairly confident that he didn't. But I reckon that he might get a week.
I'd give him a week.
Because they won't want to try and
push him
too far.
Don't push Watson.
No,
I mean, we need him. We need him in the finals. Without Watson,
no.
He's, as I said, the golden goose.
Yeah.
He's going to give you 3 miraculous goals a game. You cannot buy a player that gives you... He creates 3 goals. It's not, the goals he kicks are not necessarily through goals that are created by team play. It's him individually creating something out of nothing. That is so valuable to be able to have a player that can do that.
Yeah.
So...
But I think that's the difficulty in observing it. I find myself when I'm watching it, like last night, I felt really critical, but then they win, and I think, well, what am I criticising really when they win? Because that's what you want teams to do. But I'm always measuring against either past performances of teams, like like you said, 13, 14, 15, those sort of teams, or thinking and measuring against the other good teams in the league at the moment. And that's where I get nervous, and that's where my criticism is based.
it's also about the aura of your team. You know,
Definitely.
you look at Brisbane's performance against Sydney, and then you go, shit, they're a really great team.
Yeah.
I don't want to go up against them
No.
next week. But when you scrape over the feels, I mean, not going to say scrape, but if you look at last night's trajectory, it felt like after half time that was GWS's they did outscore us easily.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like they're coming back
Yes.
at us. So instead of it being we're getting further away, and which is, you know, it's scary to come up against us next week if had we beaten them by 60 points. But now Melbourne comes up against us next week and they say they're gettable.
Yeah.
Because we're better than GWS.
Yeah.
They got over the line by 14 points against GWS. We're 2 goals better than GWS. That means we can easily beat this team. And you don't have that aura that comes from every week bringing out, you know, dominating a team by, you know, 100 points, you know, whatever. You know, 100 points is a lot, but 60 points every week against these poor teams, you develop an aura like Freo has.
Yeah.
You know, they come, or Sydney does when they bury a team like by 100 or something like that, and you go, you know, and you're scared, and this team, they don't have an aura about them. You know, they look gettable. If I'm looking at from, it's like, I mean, I wouldn't be, if I was Melbourne, I wouldn't be like, oh shit, I don't want to come against Hawthorn. But if we were on our game, we can beat this team. You know?
Yeah.
It's different. That's a different mentality for the opposition.
Yeah.
And that's only bred through consistent, you know, really putting the foot down on teams.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah. So
Yeah, and I
there's
think
that
it comes
aspect.
down then to individual players, which are scary in Hawthorn. Like, obviously, Watson is scary for them, and so now is Day,
Yeah.
and so is Newcomb.
Yeah.
You can pick them out, and Impey was scary for them. You know, like, but it's not a team scare; it's individual scares, and I would prefer it to be a team scare, like this team, like it was in that mid 2000s. I mean, they were scary.
Well, that's why there were so many games I reckon we probably got over the line because of our aura.
Yeah.
Making the other team, no matter how far they got ahead of you, they'd always think that Hawthorn's coming back, and if we got a little run on there, confidence would dive immediately. There were so many games you could probably say the reason we won that game is because of our aura. And the fear of playing the great Hawthorn.
At some stage there, it was the unsociable Hawks.
Yep.
You know, like it was known. So that term, whereas I mean they've given up on a Hollywood Hawks, but we haven't got a term yet that sort of describes the team. I mean, with Melbourne, it's an up and coming, and they have care factor 0.
Yeah.
You know, they're just going to win. And they're going to get their 100 points and they just go for it, like we did in 24. You know, whereas at the moment we don't have that sort of, I don't know, thing that binds it and says to the other teams, like the Freo. I mean, they got that Dockers thing going, you know, like, and we sort of don't have that.
It's a killer instinct for me.
Yeah.
Just don't have a killer instinct to just I mean, I've been saying it for weeks. It's like every game is exactly the same story. It's sort of just like, just finish them off. I mean, last night, perfect example. We could have buried that team we could have easily buried that team, and it was just sort of just like, that's what, but then you win, so can't complain. I mean, don't want to be too negative, because that's what's so miraculous about it. You always win, but you always just go, oh my God, could have won by 1 million points in that game again. So anyway, it's going to be what's your thoughts on Melbourne? I mean, I think in Fortress Tasmania, you hardly ever lose, so you got to back the Hawks in that.
I think so.
And hopefully Gunston's coming back for that game.
Yeah.
We'll see, though.
Yeah, and maybe Nash and maybe Impey. I don't know how long Impey's out for, but Impey's going to be important to that game. And who plays on Cozzy, because that's going to be he's you know, outstanding at the moment. His form is incredible. So they've got a few players that are scary. Anyway, let's look at that when we come to do the preview on this after the selection, and we'll be clearer about, you know, our prospects there. But as you say, on paper now, I think that we should win, but I will be more confident about that prediction when I see the selection.
Yeah. I mean, I'll summarize. Let's finish up now. But I'll just summarise the thoughts on the game from my perspective. It's sort of good win, could have been a great win. I think that's what summarises our view of it.
Yeah.
It was a win, good, we take the points, good, but for me, those are the games that could have been easily a big win, had a little bit, tighten up a few things, especially the connection between the mids and the forwards.
Yep.
It could have been a big win, that one, because the centre dominance was extraordinary from us. So, and that's the biggest positive, isn't it? Coming out,
totally.
Centre, beautiful.
Yep.
Just tighten up the connection between the centre and the forward line, and I think we'll be
Hey,
golden.
we don't need the merit.
Oh yeah, well that's the other thing I was saying. Is there any merit in merit? I mean, merit's looking less and less needed every week. For me, Ben King's stocks are rising and merits are falling week after week.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's only, of course, if any injury happens to that midfield of any of our best players, that's when merit suddenly becomes valuable again.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that. But for me, King having a forward who can just lead out and take a mark, would really improve this team's. That's why for me, Ben King is going up and up and up. So anyway, we'll wrap it up now. But we've got the Thursday night selection squawk, which will be when we'll look a bit more closely at the next game against Melbourne. Any final words?
No, I'm okay.
All right, go Hawks, and we'll see you on Thursday.
I just wanna